So good afternoon everybody, thanks very much for coming. Welcome to Landmark Hotel and to this press conference ahead of the fight between George Groves and Jamie Cox at the SSE Arena on October the 14th. It is of course part of the World Boxing Super Series, and these fighters and all fighters involved at super middleweight and cruiserweight will be boxing for the Muhammad Ali Trophy. But added to that, for this one of course there is a world title on the line. The super middleweight WBA title that George Groves won in such thrilling fashion at the end of May at Bramall Lane in Sheffield will be up for grabs, and Jamie Cox, the challenger, 24-0, a very hungry contender. All the main protagonists are up at this top table. So to my right hand side we've got Kalle Sauerland, the Chief Boxing Officer of the World Boxing Super Series, and of course George Groves himself and Shane McGuigan. And to my left, Eddie Hearn, the promoter who looks after Jamie Cox, Jamie himself, and also his trainer, John Costello. So we'll be hearing from all of them, then at the end we'll be taking questions, and they'll also all be available for one-on-one interviews. So, Kalle, to you first for a quick word just about the Muhammad Ali Trophy and the World Boxing Super Series in general.
So first of all, good afternoon. Great to be in London, my original hometown. To have the first kick-off presser for a fight. We've done a few press conferences about the tournament in New York, in Monte Carlo, but it's nice to have the first fight press conference in my hometown. The Ali Trophy is something that is going to bring special fights to boxing. Special fights is what fans want. Storylines in tournaments only get better. You know, you could talk about past tournaments. Super Six, great example. Carl Froch would never have fought at Wembley Stadium had it not been for the Super Six. We're going to see some amazing fights next week. Berlin, Marco Hook Usyk. The week after, we're going to Liverpool, a force for Callum Smith, who takes on Eric Scotland. A week later, we're going to the States, San Antonio, to see Kudryashov fight against Dorticos. On to Riga for Bradis against Perez. On to Stuttgart for Chris Eubank against Yildirim. And then off to London for this fight. The last two dates will be announced also in probably the coming week. This fight is something special. It's special outside the tournament. It would be special outside the tournament, and I think it's almost more special, of course, inside the tournament to kick us off here. George Groves, a man of many talents, not only inside the ring, outside the ring, a man who knows how to pick himself up, dust himself off, and fight. A man who did himself, his family, his team, his country so proud earlier this year to finally win that Super Championship. Jamie Cox on the other side, a challenger, undefeated, hungry lion. What more can you want apart from add to that the fact that it's a derby? You know, nothing more special. Those nights, those British nights, I remember growing up watching ITV, and actually many of those were Eddie's father's shows. You know, those are special nights, and I hope to see something, and I'm sure we're going to see an amazing atmosphere with the best fans in the world ultimately. You know, there's some great fans, but British fans, when they raise a roof, and I'm expecting fireworks inside the ring on October 14th.
Thanks, Kalle. Eddie, I'll come to you next. Kalle mentioning there George's win when he beat Fedor Chudinov, a fantastic win at Bramall Lane back at the end of May to win that WBA World Super Middleweight title. Jamie Cox was also on the bill that night, and it's just an indication of how quickly things can happen in boxing that just a few months later they're both in the ring and the world title is on the line.
Yeah, it's a big shock for us the way everything worked out, but a great opportunity. George was excellent at Bramall Lane. 27,000 people behind him. It was a great atmosphere and a great fight. He's always in great fights. For Jamie, you know, the plan was quite simple, just to be active. The debut with him and Matchroom was at Bramall Lane. It was a good win, although he was a little bit rusty. And we were going to get out again and fight for the British title against Rocky Fielding at the end of September. Kalle came to us Saw Jamie Cox in that fight, knew about his reputation, knew he was exciting and undefeated, and a perfect mix really for the series. I didn't expect that we'd necessarily be selected for the series. We were. I think it was a great selection by Calla and the team. Jamie jumped at the opportunity. We didn't expect George Groves to pick him, and he did. And he did that because he's a little bit quirky. He likes to be in exciting fights. And it's a really exciting fight for people who don't know Jamie Cox from a fan's perspective. Everybody in the industry is talking about this fight, and many are saying, I fancy Jamie Cox in this fight. And we're kind of like free rolling here because Jamie Cox was sitting in our office probably 6 months ago or 4 months ago, whatever it was, looking at his future and just trying to get back in a routine, trying to get back on the map. Now he sits here, 8 weeks away from challenging for the WBA world title in a fight we really fancy. So we're absolutely buzzing, to be honest with you. I don't think Jamie could be happier, in a greater place, and really excited for the series. I think Calla's done a great job. Logistically, it's insane, the schedule that's coming up, but great for boxing. And I think you have a great fight here, one that we're very confident of winning. I think John Costello is working with the right people and a great trainer himself, great sparring. Everybody knows George Groves. Everybody's seen him time and time again. And he's come back and he's won the world title and he'll want to defend it. But I think he has a very tough fight against Jamie Cox, and we're very confident.
Well, John, let's just cross to you then. You're obviously very confident that Jamie can get the job done come October the 14th. And you just touched on it there, how things came about. How surprised were you that the opportunity came about to box in the World Boxing Super Series? And how surprised were you maybe that George and Shane decided to pick Jamie?
Well, we was going over, we expected Jürgen Breimer, but then I heard a whisper the night before that George was talking to people by the pool and said he was going to pick Jamie. So we went in there. We had our card marked that George was going to pick Jamie. So we were praying that George picked Jamie because it's the fight we wanted. We asked for this fight before George was champion. We wanted the fight, so we was over the moon. This is what Jamie's in boxing for. He's not here to make up the numbers. He's here to win a world title. And make no mistake about it, it's over the 14th. Jamie Cox will be world champion.
So Shane, we'll just come to you. You must have played a big part in the decision-making process, and George is world champion now, of course, but generally speaking, people don't give opportunities to skillful, hungry, unbeaten southpaws, but that's what you decided to do.
No, definitely. I mean, George has achieved his dream. He's won a world title, and for us, for myself, he's been a massive fighter before. You have to get him motivated, and I think fighting someone like Jamie Cox, he knows he's going to have to train hard for it, and be at his best. And if we have a hard fight in the start of the tournament, then we're going to set the standard for the rest of the tournament. And I believe he's going to beat him. I believe he's going to beat him well. Jamie's not a super middleweight, let's be honest. He's a light middleweight at best, and very good fighter. But the size is going to be a big factor in this fight. And with George's punching power, he's going to set traps. He's going to walk him onto a shot. And that's what we're training for. He's here to win this tournament, and Jamie Cox is just in the way.
So Jamie, how do you respond to that?
Full credit, he has great people around him. George Groves, Shane, Barry, the rest of the team. I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and I'm preparing the hardest and best I can, and we will win the fight.
But when you were both on that bill in Sheffield, you couldn't have imagined really that this was going to come about, to get the opportunity to fight for a world title in the UK. It doesn't get too much better than that.
No, it's I'm in the sport to fight the best. I've always been like that. I love the challenge, and I've got it, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm working hard, and you're all going to be in for a great show.
Do you feel that you're being underestimated at all due to the fact that they chose you?
I'm not thinking about what any talk. I'm not thinking about what any talk is going on. I'm just preparing for what he does, how he performs, what I need to do, and just concentrating on what I need to do to win the fight, and that's it.
So George, let's hear it from your side. We heard from John there saying that the talk around the pool the night before the draw was that you were going to choose Jamie. I mean, for how long had he been in your mind?
I suppose once I got the full list through of who's going to be in there, quickly have a quick think about it. But my gut feeling straight away was I want to fight Jamie Cox. I mean, there were so many reasons why it worked for me, as well as being a fight against a fellow Brit, something that generate a lot of excitement here in the UK. A fight that I would definitely get up for. Southpaw, quite fancied that. It's been a while. So, I mean, there was no easy fight as such from the four that I could pick. I had first choice, but at the same time, they're all winnable fights, you know. And you know, if this press conference was in Turkey and I had picked Jamie Cox, they probably would have thought, well, you picked the easy guy. But because he's a Brit, people, you know, it's going to create much more excitement and much more tension as such, being here in the UK. So there's plenty of reasons to pick someone. Jamie was just my first choice, and very confident of winning and winning well and setting the stall out. You know, getting the job done and looking good, because you know, when me and Jamie Ringwalk at Wembley, we're going to know who we're fighting, you know, in the new year, because Eubank and the other chap fight a week before, so it's going to be exciting, very exciting. But I want to strike fear into every one of these super middleweights who are in this tournament, and I feel I'll do a good, complete, comprehensive job on Jamie Cox. I've never had such a fantastic plan, you know, a fixture list. You don't get that in boxing. You know, I've always been the fellow who has to sort of fit in, you know. Gratefully, I was able to be part of Eddie's card, you know, in Bramall Lane, but it took a long time to negotiate. Ended up really with not much more than 5 or 6 weeks' notice for that fight. This fight I've had so much notice for, and the whole year, you know. So we are obviously with an open mind, concentrating on the whole tournament. But first things first is Jamie Cox Wembley Arena, and win well, and as I say, let everyone else be fearful in my division, in the super middleweight Ali Trophy, because we mean business. This is perfect for me. It's absolutely perfect. So very excited, training well, and I'll stop ranting.
So was that the attraction of the World Boxing Super Series then, the format of it? Because as world champion, and you worked very, very hard to get that belt, you would have had a lot of options.
Yeah, well, we knew about the tournament before the juvenile fight. It only added more pressure, to be honest. There was a drastic difference between going to the tournament as champion and not. I've got in as the favourite, the number 1 seed, the only legit world champion, and I plan to be the only one at the end of it. So we're in a good place. I've had the best lead-in, I feel, out of everyone else in this tournament, in the prep that I've had. You know, I've been working with Shane now for nearly 2 years. Last year we had a good year. We built fight on fight, and then this year, first fight out, win a world title in a tough fight against a guy who would certainly more than hold his own if he was in this tournament. So because I feel I'm in good form, training's gone great. I've had plenty of notice, which is important for me. Homecoming, I've only ever had one bad night at Wembley. So Wembley Arena successful. We're looking forward to getting back there.
Okay, so we'll now open it up to the floor for any questions. As I say, at the end they will all be available for one-on-ones.
George, you mentioned the fact that James is Southpaw as part of your attraction to selecting him. Does that mean you actually like fighting Southpaws or not?
I was trying to be clever once and say I've never lost to a southpaw, and then I remembered I did once up in Sheffield as an amateur. But yeah, I grew up boxing this fella, James DeGale, sparring him in the gym. He was a good southpaw, so very comfortable. We've had southpaws in the gym, John O'Donnell, as I grew up, It's interesting. Lots of guys struggle with the the southpaw stance, but I've always found it a natural thing. And then the traps that they usually try and set that they get away with, I know about them. I know how to nullify them and how to take advantage of them. So I quite fancied it.
I was wondering when you would be able to announce a UK TV deal for the upcoming Super Series.
The announcement won't be made by myself. I'm responsible for the boxing. So it works a little bit different. I'm also getting used to it. It's a completely different setup. The rights are being looked after by an agency called MP & Silver, but I'm told that there is a deal announcement imminent.
George, what do you think about Paddy saying that he thinks Jamie is in the winner's fight?
Paddy Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that, but I wouldn't expect anything else. Good on him. He's been known to get things wrong before in the past, so.
Like we said, he was going to beat Froch.
What's that? Yeah. Any more rehearsed questions? No.
John, I think you've got something you'd like to say?
Yeah, just something Shane mentioned about Jamie being light middle or middleweight at best. I can tell you now, Jamie could not make middleweight. 100% couldn't make middleweight. 12 stone's nice for him. I know it's with the kid in the gym. If you can make middleweight, he'd be boxing at middleweight. That's first and foremost. But size, keep talking about size as being relevant. Size had absolutely no relevance at Wembley when George got knocked out. Carl Froch was 12 stone 4 walking into that ring. I've known Rob McCracken and Max McCracken all my life. I want to know 100% he was 12 stone 4 walking into that ring. Jamie will be a hell of a lot bigger than 12 stone 4. And he hits every bit as hard as Carl Froch, mate. And he's got the same engine. So, if you think Jamie's going to be small, you hold that thought. Just hold that thought. You've been shocked in your life, mate, October 14th.
Okay, in that case then we'll break off, and all the chaps here will be available for one-on-ones. Or photos first? Photos first, of course.